watching.
Yeah, if you want to just tell your testimony and how God found you in the midst of the dark.
Let's see. How much time do you want me to take?
Take as much time as you need.
Okay, well, I'm going to lose everybody if I go past about 7 minutes, so I'll try and keep it under 7 minutes. So it's 4:02 right now. I'll try and be done, my time. I'll try to be done by 4:10. And if there's any questions or you want to butt in, please do. Be a butt. I don't mind.
Okay, also, if Chad has any questions, feel free to ask when me and him are both checking chat.
Yeah, you got to use your channel points, though.
No.
Why is the Ask Me Anything only 20 points? And the modify emote is 900.
I don't know.
You got to increase those points. It should be like 1,000. All right, so here we go. I was born as an infant, and I didn't have any hair, and I was squishy, and then I almost died when I was 1 because the flapper valve that controls your breathing flipped open and wouldn't close again, so I wasn't getting oxygen. And my parents didn't own a car because they were poor, and my dad made poor financial choices. It's all good now, but at that time it wasn't, and so that was the first, my first trip to the hospital, which was fun. And then I grew up in a small area of the central coast of California, in some different towns: San Luis Obispo, Oceano, and then Robles, which is a little town, 20,000 people. It's beautiful. I didn't realize it was beautiful when I was 21 and single and ready to mingle. So, but I went to church with my parents at a Methodist church from the time when I was about 6. And the Methodist church they went to when we started going, the pastor was really solid, and he taught the Bible, and he was passionate, and he cared, and he loved Jesus. At that point, there was like a change in pastors, which the Methodist church is renowned for doing.
Yes.
Moving pastors around.
Keep going.
And that was a problem. I didn't realize how much of a problem it was until I got much older. But it ended up causing me to have a lot of doubts and not have the spiritual structure or the theological framework to have a real relationship with God. So at about, 12 or 13, I'm an only child, which is very lonely if you're not good at making friends or have neighbors. So I spent a lot of time alone. I played a lot of video games, and I watched a lot of X-Men cartoons on Saturday mornings. And I spent a lot of time just being alone. And I had a lot of people make fun of me because I was overweight from probably 2nd grade on, and still am. Nothing's changed, but now I don't care, so it's fine. Not that I don't care, but it doesn't bother me. So anyways, I didn't have a lot of friends, and the friends I did have, I had a lot of self-consciousness and doubt that they actually were my friends, and I had developed a really anxious personality and a really self-deprecating personality, which makes it harder. There's a cycle where you start to doubt whether or not people actually like you around, and then because you do that, you do things that are counterproductive towards that, and that makes them actually not want you around. And so then you say, well, see, I knew it. They didn't want me around. And then they're like, yeah, no, we don't want you around if you're gonna act like that. And then so it's this terrible cycle of self-deprecation and problems. So I kind of lived in a state where I just felt totally unwanted by pretty much everybody. My parents, who actually were loving people, they weren't healthy emotionally. They weren't available. And they certainly weren't healthy spiritually. And they weren't abusive or anything like that, or neglectful. They just didn't know how to be emotionally available. And when I look at my grandparents on both sides, that's the case all the way up. So I just developed this really deep loneliness all the time that I kept thinking that friends were going to be able to fill it for me. And when they didn't, then I sort of frustrated, and I would take it out on them. And I would say, things like, "You guys are terrible friends," and they would look at me like totally dazed and confused, like, "What are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about." And so, because I had expectations that they would fulfill me emotionally in a way that they weren't able to, because they're just humans. So then I started getting into really dark music a lot, and ideas. I found Nine Inch Nails really resonated with me. There was a particular album called Further Down the Spiral, and I listened to that on repeat a lot. And it really spoke to me, where a lot of the Christian music that my Christian friends listened to was so shallow and superficial that I was like, I can't resonate with that. That's providing me nothing but like fake hope in something I don't even know if I believe in. And so they would say, no, 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 don't listen to that dark evil stuff. That's the devil's tool. And I'm like, well, okay, but what you're listening to is like fluffy bubble music. It doesn't mean anything. And so that led me to start to my relationship with my Christian friends to deteriorate. I didn't have a strong relationship with God. And I just got really dark. I started growing my hair out. My hair was down like past my shoulders. Started wearing black all the time. I was not goth, quote unquote, because I wasn't cool enough to be goth. Even the goth kids didn't think I was cool enough to hang out with them. So it started being something different. I'm not even sure what it was. It was just a loner, basically. So that was where I was about my late junior high, through the first 2-3 years of high school. I found some purpose in work, and I started working McDonald's, and I excelled, and I got into management and was a trainer and loved it. Customer service, I was all over it. Customers loved me. I was efficient. And so then I was like, well, okay, work. I can work, and I can earn money, and I can spend money. And I was really good at spending money. I'd buy things on credit. My parents helped me get a credit card, and which was stupid because it was a $10,000 limit, and I maxed it out in like 2 years. So my purpose just shifted back and forth between darkness and then money and then work and then school. And then I dropped out of high school because my guidance counselor couldn't express to me why I needed to finish. I was always advanced in GATE classes and stuff like that. He just couldn't articulate what the purpose of going to college was, the way that made any sense to me. So I dropped out. And then that was my teen years, and that's kind of where the darkness was all from. I wanted to die a lot, but I never would have done anything about it. Wow, it's already 4:10. I already have been talking a long time.
It's okay, keep going. Yeah, go as long as you need.
I can't hear you now because you're not on the Discord. You're not. I muted the stream.
Yeah, go as long as you need, Monk.
What's that? Okay, say again.
Go as long as you need.
Okay. Right. So that was the stuff I don't normally share because most people in churches, most Christians are not interested in that stuff. I'll be honest with you. They want to hear the good stuff. They want to hear, oh, okay, well, what is God doing in your life? And they don't want to deal with the pain or the ugliness, and they just want to brush that under the rug or sweep that under the rug. So that's why I felt like this is maybe the right environment to share that. I was talking to somebody, Otter, there was a few days ago, maybe a week or so ago, some trolls popped into your server and started saying things like Hail Satan and things like that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So, a lot of the Christian Discord servers, they would have gotten banned immediately, or people would have like totally berated them for, saying stuff. And I was like, no, hold on. These kids are me. This is me and a couple of my buddies doing the same thing. And so I talked to them for a little while, and then they invited me to their server, and then we talked. They played this music for me that they thought was going to be like shocking and scary. And then I sent them some links to Marilyn Manson's Long Hard Road Out of Hell.
Yeah.
Which is, it's super intense. The video is hard to watch, but the song itself is like, it's full of truth. And most Christians would be like, well, it's Marilyn Manson, so therefore we can't use it. I'm like, well, that's like saying, you wouldn't write down the things that Saul said. Or, like if there's truth, there's truth. And so for me, it was a long, hard road out of hell. And it took me focusing my effort and my time on moving past the sort of the hell that I had created for myself, and that people had not really done anything practical to help me get out. If you're at the bottom of a pit, people can't just stand from the top and shout. They either need to climb down with you and help you look for a way out, or they need to lower a rope, and then they need to physically, hand over hand over hand over hand, pull you with all of their strength until you get to the top. You don't just throw a rope down to somebody who's at the bottom of a pit and say, okay, I threw your rope, climb on up. The person's been starving. Their muscle mass is wasted away. They can't pull themselves out. So you either go down there with them, help them climb out, or you pull them out yourself. And that's the story of the man that Jesus healed, who he had 4 friends, and his friends wanted to take him to Jesus. He was a quadriplegic, and they knew that Jesus had been healing people like that. So they took him there, but the place was full, and he couldn't get in. And the friends, rather than saying, hey, we did what we could, we brought you here, they carried him to the top of the roof. They dug a hole through the roof, and then they lowered him down. And, they're like the unsung heroes of the Bible. They're, like, in my opinion, they're the first picture of what the church is supposed to look like. Before the disciples had the Holy Spirit, these 5 guys got it. One of them was sick and broken, and the other 4 saw it, and they did something about it. And the disciples actually were like critical of it. And then what does Jesus do the first thing? Does he heal him? No, it's not the first thing he does. The first thing he does is forgives him of his sins. And so you're like, what the heck is going on? A lot of the focus of that story is on that idea that Jesus, healed the sins first over the healing, over the physical healing. But these 4 guys, they're not even named. And I'm like, why do we care about Judas? I want to know who those 4 guys were. You know what I mean? Not that I don't care about Judas, but he's relevant to the story. But those 4 guys, like, they did the work that needed to be done. Okay, now let's fast forward to how I got out of this. So I was 21. I was working selling cars. I was making good money. I had a really cool car. But I had started drinking, and I had started having girlfriends and doing the things that guys do with girlfriends sometimes. And I didn't really care because the church, I didn't have this concept of sin, and I didn't really have a concept of whether or not God was even real. And if he was real, what does he care? Oh, funny story. When I was 17, I was working at Radio Shack, and this girl from the McDonald's where I used to work, who was very pretty, said she was interested in me. And then I talked to a mutual friend, and they said, yeah, she's interested in dating you, and she's really pretty, and she wants to be a stripper when she grows up. And
wait, are you serious about this?
What?
Are you serious about this?
I'm serious. Oh. And I said, what? And I was not an attractive teenager, not even in the slightest. When I look back at pictures, I'll send you some pictures, and if you join Otter's Discord, you can see the pictures of me when I was in high school. It was not pretty. And so I was like, why is this girl even into me? So I went to my pastor, who was this pastor who didn't really believe the Bible, and I said, hey, this girl wants to date me who wants to be a stripper. What should I do? And he kind of like shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. I mean, you're going to do what you want to do, right? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, okay. All right, I guess so. See you later. I guess I have a girlfriend now. I'm not hearing you. I'm seeing you talk on stream, but it's muted. So I'm not hearing you talk.
Yeah, I'm not talking. I'm just doing facial emotions.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm not doing a good job of knowing.
Yeah, just knowing
Okay.
that pastor just did that, saying that I don't
No,
know.
let's do that. And I'm like, I've been surrounded by adults who have done stuff like that to me, where I'm like, okay, I came to you for advice. I came to you for wisdom. I didn't just do what I wanted to do. I came and talked to the pastor, which is what you're supposed to do when a pretty girl who wants to be a stripper wants to date you. And you're supposed to say, no, don't do that.
Yeah, but this
And then,
pastor, but
or I
this,
went to my guidance counselor, my school guidance counselor, and said, hey, what if I drop out of high school? And you're not supposed to say, well, whatever, you can if you want. And that's what he said. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll drop out of high school. Um, so, anyways, let's fast forward to today so I can get through this. Um, exactly, Vic Sigma
exactly.
with the head smack, the face palm. Okay, so I was feeling really unfulfilled. I had no purpose. I had no significance. I was making money. That was great. I had a cool car. That was great. I had a girlfriend. That was great. I had a ton of friends. We would, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, we would have a party at somebody's house, and I was never alone. And I was actually now I was like one of the cool kids because I had this cool car that I was like a street racer, and everybody knew who I was, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. I like this. So, so it was basically alcohol, street racing, and girls. And still, keep in mind, I'm not an attractive guy. Okay, so I don't know what happened here. I don't know how this happened, but but I still felt totally unfulfilled, and I've started feeling led to move, and so eventually I prayed for the first time in about 6 or 7 years about moving to Orange County, which was a big city in my mind. It's not, but it was in my mind, and so I moved. And in Orange County, I met a pastor. Well, okay, so I was working at a Sprint store, and this guy came in. He was huge, tall, 6'5", and used a United Methodist credit card to pay his cell phone bill. And I was like, oh, I'm a Methodist, or I used to be a Methodist, and we talked for a while, and I found out that my pastor's brother was the one who led him to Christ.
Oh,
And so he
wow.
said, would you come and, hang out with me and talk to me in my office sometime? And so I said, sure, I'll do that. And we talked for a little while, and he got to the bottom of it really fast. He was like, so what's your purpose? And I'm like, oh, crap. I don't know. What's a purpose? Is that like a thing that people have? And he was like, yeah, God has a purpose for you. Do you know what it is? I'm like, no. And he said, what if I told you that you can know beyond a shadow of a doubt what your purpose is? Maybe not your specific purpose, but a general idea of how you should spend your time, what you should do, how you should prioritize your life. And I was like, that'd be great. So he and I talked for a long time, and he would try to get me to come to church a lot. And I would say, no, I have laundry to do, or I'm hungover on Sundays, and so I'm not going to come to church. But eventually he'd say, God doesn't care if you're hungover. You're hungover with God at home. You might as well be hungover with God at church. And I'm like, I guess, okay, fine, that's true. And he's like, and you can wear smelly socks. You don't have to do your laundry. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I started coming, and I heard the story of this girl who was going to Thailand after the tsunami in 2004. And something she said, or the way she said it, I was like, oh, there are people who know that they have a purpose. And there are people who gain significance through serving other people. And it was the first time I had really encountered a mature Christian who was walking in faith and who was seeking the kingdom. And it blew my mind. And so I had money in my pocket, and she was like, if you have any money to spare to help me buy a plane ticket. She was like a poor college student. And I was like, I did have money in my pocket. I had a bunch of cash that was given to me by my roommate to pay rent with. And I was like, I felt led to just give it to her. And so I walked up and I was like, I've never met you before, but here's a bunch of cash. And I don't know how I'm going to pay rent now, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. And so she said, well, do you want to come? And I was like, what? Yeah, I do. And she said, okay, not this time, but in about 3 months, some of my friends from USC are going. And if you want to go with them, you should go. And so so that is a long story that's for another time. But essentially, I went I went to Thailand, and there's craziness. Craziness. If you want to ask about that craziness, you can ask Ska-Man. He still gives me a hard time and says I'm crazy for it. So went to Thailand, and then I went to Vanuatu, which is like an island in the South Pacific, with a friend who was a Bible translator, and that was crazy because it was like grass huts, naked tribal people, an active erupting volcano that we could see from the porch of this missionary's house, like a movie. There is a movie actually. If you watch the movie Vanuatu,
Yeah.
which is like a tribal Romeo and Juliet, it was filmed in the place that we were.
Oh, wow.
So I started just diving in and just doing things that were crazy and kingdom focused. How much I learned none of their language. It was so difficult, Yoshi. Okay, wait. So there's a language called Bislama, and there's a Bible. Hold on. This is gonna be fun.
Oh.
This will be good. This will be good because I can take a break from talking and talking. Okay, wait. So we've been doing the Hawaiian Bible for a long time, right? So let's do the Bislama Bible. It's very similar. Okay, it's called Bible Long Bislama on Bible.com. Okay, tell me a verse.
Let's do John 3:16.
John 3:16. Okay, let me get to it. John 3:16. I'll copy and paste it into the chat too, because part of it is the way that it's written out. But then I'll read it too. Hold on. No, that's good. It's good, Yoshi. I needed to get derailed because I was talking too long. This will help me to process and figure out what's important to tell. Okay, here's how it goes. God, I love him too much, old man. Long wall. Now hem I give him me straight pickaninny blong him. Me one no more we hem I got. Blong ogeta man we only belief long me Bombay no save loose only got leaf. I know save penis.
Wow.
So that's from the Bislama Bible. And so Bislama is like the main language of Vanuatu, and then there are not thousands, probably hundreds of local tribal languages that are different. So his story is crazy. He's going to be a guest on the For the King podcast probably in the next few weeks.
Okay.
I'm trying to get him to do a little bit called Translation Time with Dr. Ken, which would be really fun because he can speak that fluently.
Now, Monk, question.
Yes, sir.
Is this how you met Letty?
Okay, so how I met Letty. That's relevant to my testimony, so that's good. So eventually I ended up working at a Sprint store. What did you try, Yoshi?
You tried finding the translation, but chapter verse does not have it.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there's a lot of cool translations. There's the Cottonwood Gospel, which is fun to read. Okay, so how I met Letty. So I was working at Sprint, and I had given my life to Christ, and like really, really given my life to Christ. And I was driving this cool car, which it was a Subaru Impreza RS. It was what I had used for street racing. I got a lot of identity out of it. I was well known in a car club. I had my car on the front page of like a main website with a girl like showing her thong and standing in front of it. And it was like it was a big part of my identity. And so finally I was like, I feel like God might call me into international missions. But I have this car and I have this loan, so I have to go to work to pay for this car so that I can drive to work to pay the loan. And I was like, this is a terrible cycle. You know, they talk about the rat race. This was more like a hamster wheel. And it's true what the Bible says, that the borrower is slave to the lender. And I never really understood that until that moment. So I said, okay, God, if you would orchestrate me being transferred to a store closer to my school or closer to my apartment, I'll sell the car and I'll ride a bike. Okay, no problem, Yoshi.
Yeah, but VOD does get saved, Yoshi.
I'll sell the car and I'll ride a bike. And so I one day they told me, okay, you're being transferred to Fountain Valley. And I thought, oh, cool, I can sell my car. That same day, somebody knocked on the window of our Sprint store and said, "Hey, is that car for sale?" I'm like, yes. Why do you know that? Why do you even think it's for sale? Because I hadn't put a sign, I hadn't listed it. And he said, well, I've been looking at it for months, and I just decided finally I would just ask if it's for sale. And I'm like, well, yeah, today it's for sale, as of today, and as of tomorrow, you will never see it again because I'm being transferred. So he said, okay, well, come to my house. I have cash. Well, how much do you want? And I told him, and he said, yeah, no problem. I have that cash at my house. I'm like, what? God is doing crazy stuff. So I turned into this weird, like, Jesus hippie who rode a bike and just talked about Jesus all the time at work and refused to work on Sundays, even though my boss told me I had to. I just told him, well, you can schedule me, but I'm not coming. And he's like, fine. So she started chasing after me, and Jesus hippie. So she started pursuing me, and I didn't notice because she was 21 and I was 25, and I was not interested in pretty 21-year-olds. I was interested in Jesus, and so she would say things to me that should have tipped me off. Like one time she said, we would close the store together, just she and I. We would be sitting in the office together. She would sit next to me, even though she didn't have to. She could have gone home, but she chose not to. She chose to stay there and hang out while I counted money. And she would say, so what kind of a person are you looking for to marry? And I was like, somebody who loves God more than they love me. And she was like, well, what if they love God and you? I'm like, no. I'm a failure of a human being. I'm a jacked up man, and I will fail them. And as long as they're looking to me for their fulfillment and their like support, they're going to be disappointed and they're going to go somewhere else. And then we're going to get divorced. I'm like, it has to be somebody who loves God more than me. So that when I fail, they go to God rather than going to some other man or whatever. So she was like, oh, okay. And then 2 weeks later, she said, can I go to church with you? I'm like, sure, you can go to church with me. And so she started coming to church with me, and that's a whole nother story that I can give some other time. But yeah, I mean, so long story short, it was like, this just being alone. It was the loneliness, honestly. It was being alone and not having anybody that I could count on that really led me to the darkest part of me. And Jesus's 2 prime commandments are love God and love neighbors. And so the fact that people said they loved me and then never picked up the phone or never showed up at my house or never made any effort to display that love for me was what led me to doubt even the existence of God. Because it was like, well, if people, humans here right in front of me don't love me, then how could a God who I've never even seen love me? And so that was when I was like, maybe it's not even real. So the darkness came from lack of community first, and then it led to, when I was in high school, I got into black magic and started reading a lot of stuff about Jewish mysticism and the Kabbalah, and I even tried to do some, I don't remember if they were called spells or whatever else, but it was like, there were some things that this guy said, you do this and you visualize that and you can call this into existence. And I'm like, all right, I'll try that. And then I did start seeing things. I started hallucinating, and I had this really crazy sense of like impending doom one night. I was laying on a golf course and at night, and I just remember thinking like, the world's going to end, and it's going to end right now. And I think when I look back, what I was feeling when you have an impending sense of doom, it's depression. I mean, that's how it's diagnosed. Is you can see no way out, and I could see no way out. And so it wasn't that it truly was the world's going to end, or that I truly was seeing physical demons. Maybe I was, I don't know, but it was more of a spirit thing. So the world wasn't going to end, but I felt like it was. And to me, the world was ending. And the demons maybe weren't there physically, but I certainly invited them into my mind during that time. And if 2 or 3 people had come to me in that time and just been there for me and consistently reached out in a way that was non-confrontational, or without the high expectations, church turns Christians into these like people who then like foist these impossible expectations on other people, to be happy and healthy and smiley and whatever else, and not allow them to feel what they feel, the depth of the pain that they struggle with. They want you to get out of it because they're like, no, depression, that's not of God. And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, I know that, but I can't just turn it off. I didn't know anything about neurochemistry at the time, and I do now. And so now I understand that there's a spiritual and a physical element to that. It's neurochemical and spiritual and circumstantial. But all these Christians, it was like, here's a greeting card. Don't worry, Jeremiah 29:11.
Okay, that is.
I know where you can shove your Jeremiah 29:11.
Because
if God had a plan for me, I can't hear you, Otter.
Let's just say that right now, that this is taken out of context.
It is. But people do it all the time. And so that's what was so frustrating to me, was like, you're not giving me real world stuff. Just put your arm around me and say, I love you, and God loves you, and it's going to be okay. And do that again, tomorrow, and do that again the next day, and do that again the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and eventually, maybe I'll get there. But I don't need you quoting Bible verses at me like a weapon, as if I'm a failure, and the reason I'm not healing is because I don't have enough faith, or because I don't know enough of the Bible. I'm not trying hard enough. I'm pretty sure that the reason Jesus was crucified was because there's no amount of trying that saves us. Yeah. So the pressure that Christians in general have put on me and other people to fix their own problems through effort, like read the Bible more, pray more, watch more Christian movies or whatever, to save themselves, is like, I've always hesitated to speak so boldly, but now at this moment in this coronavirus, I'm not hesitating anymore. I'm done with that. It's like it's causing more problems than it's solving. So, all right, I'm talking. That was way more than I wanted to do. Sorry.
Yeah, it is okay. Yeah, and just knowing that how food always can cause mental health problems. Mm-hmm. Being truthful, since one of the huge reasons why we did this not so 24-hour stream is to support those with mental health problems, as I know that I'm having to see a psychiatrist because of my own mental health problems. Mm-hmm.